South Florida. Write Your Narrative podcast is your street art soundtrack. This is where the culture speaks. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Write Your Narrative podcast, Season 4. My guest today was born in Chile, raised in Miami. It has been painting a wall since the age of 15, I heard. Now, for over 25 years, he turned a spray paint into fine art, creating hyper-realistic murals inspired by vintage photographies and history. Bold, precise, and unforgettable. He's one of Miami's most respected muralists. His name is Claudio Picasso, aka CPWON. Claudio, thank you for accepting my invitation to the podcast and welcome.
Thank you. It's been a long time coming.
It's been a long time coming, yes. I've been following your route, your trajectory for quite some times, from studio to studios and walls to walls, especially in Wynwood. So, yes, it's been a long time coming. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So,
thanks for having me.
You've said that you painted and drew almost daily as a child. I read that in some article. Do you remember actually your very first time that you felt very, very proud of something?
Yeah. So I remember, I think I remember in elementary school that I would have these contests with another kid in my class who was also one who would draw every day. And then so we would have the other students would kind of judge like, oh, which drawing is better. And it was this constant competition between the two of us, and we were in the same grade and we kind of grew up together and all. But there was always like in class to class, there was always like one or two other artists, and you wanted to always kind of compare and see, so yeah, there was that. I think that was the first time I remember being really proud of work, was like when you got the approval of your classmates, as a little kid.
And so how soon did you realize that you were going to become an artist officially? Let's say you can call yourself an artist. Okay, this is what I want to do.
I think it's two different questions for me.
Yeah, kind of.
Because I struggled with calling myself an artist.
Like a lot of people.
For a lot of time, yeah, for a long time. Like, I mean, seriously, like probably not until like my 30s, and then I would kind of like scoff when other people would be like, I'm an artist, and you're like, okay, yeah, what are you doing? Because I think going through school and studying art and art history, and I seeing like the impact that these, artists had, I was like, well, I'm not that. I'm just kind of messing around. I'm playing around, and so there was always that. And I don't think that when I went to college and I studied art and I studied art history, and then I even going into graphic design and all those things, I always said, well, I'm interested in art. I love art, but am I really going to be able to do this? I don't know if it honestly ever occurred to me that I could make a living off of it. I thought, well, I should give it a try, but there was this disconnect. I am this person who draws and paints, but I'm not these people who I'm studying and, everything else. So, yeah.
So what was the click? What was the moment when you say, okay, I can maybe I can make it, or maybe just like it was just a natural process that was just
it wasn't natural at all. It took so long because, like I said, I worked at a gallery and hated it. I worked in graphic design and thought like, oh, this is just an office job, at least where I was doing that. I taught, and that was better, but still not. I taught partly because like, well, this is something that interests me, and I like, I like the teaching, but I also have the summers to paint, and do what I want. So this is great. It's the best of both worlds. It wasn't until I moved to Wynwood in like 2005, and that was just
Wynwood, yes.
Yeah, and that was kind of a weird occurrence. I essentially I was trying to move to the Gables and couldn't get the place that I wanted, and then I heard about Edgewater and Wynwood, and so I went over there, and I liked the area, but I knew nothing about it. And then in 2005, I wasn't doing murals. This is after my graffiti time.
I was
and at this time I was still trying to do some of the graphic design stuff, but wasn't really getting a lot of work from that. And I got a call from my friend Lauren, owner of Sweat Records, and she remembered me from the time that we worked together in a record store back, when she was a teenager and I was in college and everything. And so I got this call out of the blue that they wanted a mural at Sweat Records, the original in Wynwood. So I did this mural for them, and literally the business owner next door said, well, this is great. Like, who's the guy that you used? And I got a commission for that. And then I started doing more projects for him. And I thought at that point, well, I should probably get a business card or, something, and maybe I should get a website. But when, at that time, if you're doing spray painting, you're doing graffiti in the 90s, you're not thinking, well, this will be a living someday. That was just impossible. It was nothing. So even when that was happening, it's like, well, this is a nice little side thing. But like you said, just right time and place, being in Wynwood in 2005, 2006 at that time, it's like, okay, well, this is not normal. This is a interesting new thing that's happening here.
So you had some of your friends asking for some art for their businesses and their home.
Right.
Do you remember the first piece that you actually make you thinking, okay, this is it?
Yeah, well,
so that mural that you mentioned for Sweat Record, it's still up, actually.
Yeah. So right, the one in Little Haiti's been, it's like 18 years now, which is, it's never been toyed or anything like that. So that's, it's great. I think there's a respect for the business there, and and hopefully a respect for my work as well. One of the things for me was, it seems silly, but the technology of spray paint improved.
Oh.
So when I was doing stuff in the 90s, I was using Krylon and Rusto and whatever I could get my hands on. I started using 94 and these other premium brands or art brands of spray paint in the mid 2000s. But even like the first mural I did for Sweat Records, I used Krylon because that's what I knew. But then when I started to actually use this other stuff, this low pressure stuff, I started to think like, well, this has got capabilities that I couldn't touch before. And I started to think, well, I could probably do like realism with this.
Yes.
I never even thought that was, there were people too from France and people like that I grew up with. They were like semi-realistic, portraiture. And I was like, whoa, this is really, really cool. So I just started to try. I started to try to do portraits with Alien and with 94, and I saw that I got close enough. It was close enough that I was like, okay, I can keep on, working with this. And what I did see was bigger is better. And I was trying to reduce it to something that would fit on a canvas. So I started to do kind of slices of faces, slice in half or slice in the top, and then, just the eyes or some little feature. And I thought, okay, well, this is something I can do. And then I just kept on, with that.
Talking about your art and your palette, it's usually pretty muted. I mean, you stay within a color shades and different things. So going full colors, no, it's not something you've done, you would experience, or this is just a route that you find. This is your style.
Yeah, sure. There's a couple of reasons for it. I think you're right. I'm never going to be, I think, technically good enough to be at the very, very top 1% of 1% when it comes to the hyper-realistic portraits. I'm not BK Fox, I'm not Smug, and or Jex or any of those guys. I'm close enough that if somebody really wants me to do a portrait, I can do a good portrait, and I feel comfortable doing it. There are a couple reasons for the colors, though. I was using a lot of old photos, like Library of Congress, like 19th century stuff. I like the stoicism. I like the muted expressions, and of course those are black and white. And the same when I started to shift to like the old like marble and plaster sculptures. It's like, well, this is black and white. Why not just kind of make it whatever I wanted my imagination to be?
True. Filter.
So. Yeah, exactly. And then, just kind of a reimagining of them. And so that was kind of like the fun of that, I think. And I've just kind of continued with that. And I think one of the things is that the gradients, the fades, the color transitions, it's something that I enjoy most. It's something that is like very indicative of like what I, my style. And so I'm never going to get away from that, the strange color combinations.
Yeah, it's just not you. Yeah.
Right.
So you mentioned a few minutes ago, right before the podcast, that you are you're working on a wall right now, and then you looked at some photos, and then you say, oh, okay, this is not right, this is not right, this is not right. So in any of your painting, have you ever tried, or have you ever hidden some details, like an Easter egg, maybe something that only a few people would notice, or something? Is that something you throw sometimes in your painting, in your murals?
Yeah, let me think about that. It's funny. I remember working at J. Wakefield and doing doing the taproom mural. I did throw some Easter eggs in there for the fans of sci-fi, the fans of Star Wars, and things that they only like would pick up from the movies. I had this is getting really dorky, but I had Han Solo. He was at the bar at the cantina, and underneath the bar, you can see in the shadow that he has his hand on his gun, which is kind of a nod to the whole like, well, I don't want to get it too much into it, but the people would know.
People would know. That's the one.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. For me, no, I think that you have to be kind of either interested in like the subject matter, because I'll a lot of times use these sculptures these days that it seems like, well, this is just another like Canova or something like that sculpture, but there's usually something behind it. For instance, when I went to Shoreditch, when I went and painted in London, I painted a sculpture that was there. I think it was at the Victoria and Albert Museum.
Okay.
And it was one that they didn't know where it had come from. I think it was, there was some type. I think it was originally French, but it might have been stolen or something, or and right. So there's. I kind of like we'll play with things like that, and you think, oh, well, that's a cool sculpture, and then, well, what's the reason why he used that one? And there's usually something behind it,
Yeah, there's also something. So,
Yeah.
so when you say that, looking back at some photos, okay, when you're on the wall, when you're working on the wall, you just focusing on something, on the color blend, on the shading, on all those things. But then you look at photos, and then you say, okay, that was wrong. Just
Sure.
like that's what you just mentioned.
Yeah, right. It is something. Sometimes it's kind of instinctual. If you're, for me, the eye will kind of gravitate to something that's like, oh, that doesn't look, not necessarily look realistic, but it doesn't look good. So it's aesthetic, and a lot of times it's just arrangement, it's composition. Sometimes there will be a reference photo, but I won't necessarily go so close to the reference photo. Sometimes I'll change little things, and then I'm like, well, this is better, this way. So that's all it is. But every night after painting, I do like take photos, and I check the progress and make sure that everything's all right.
So is actually a site specific very important to you whenever you?
It can be, yeah. Sometimes it is essentially it's site specific. Yeah, it could be a couple of things. So for instance, this one that I'm doing in Fort Lauderdale right now is site specific in the sense that it's on a corner and it's close to a tree. So I wanted to use one that was kind of like peeking around a corner, that the bulk of the information was on the one side that it's away from the tree, while there's not so much of interest that's close to the tree. That sort of thing you can say is site specific, but it works in a lot of different places. When you're talking about going to another country, another city, and you're working, yeah, for sure. I like to do something that like, would hit home a little bit better for the people that are, there.
About hitting home, yes. How do you think the community will live with a work day to day? I mean, whenever they see your work day to day, is that something that you try to include? Talking about the community?
Yeah.
Is more.
Well, you're talking about Miami specifically?
Yes.
I do have, I think that something that I'll never get away from, and is I do kind of have that. You're talking about the color palette.
Yes.
I have a graffiti color palette, and it's specifically Miami graffiti colors. I grew up looking up to like the inkheads and that those kind of guys that were doing pieces, and Miami had its own style, its flavor, and it had its own color palette and stuff. I haven't gotten away from that. Those influences are still there. And I think that, the tendency to go to the vibrant greens and teals and pinks and purples and stuff like that, that's me. I'm always going to use those. I'm never going to go, into like much of the earth tones and stuff. Now, 5 years from now, then I can go back and say like, hey, he was lying, no, but no, I don't think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you were mentioning about the composition, about the mural and the tree and everything, do you think the social media has helped or hurt the quality of public art in general? Because
Huh.
when you look at the thing, you're thinking about your composition with the tree and everything. So probably you also think
Yeah,
about the photo that people can take or what you want the subject to
sure.
be picking out. So you think the social media has hurt or
It,
helped somehow?
it has. I mean, it's definitely helped. It, especially coming from a graffiti background, where a lot of times you would take a photo of your work, and then that'd be the last time that you would see it.
Yep.
Sometimes you would paint, and then the next day it's gone.
Oh my!
Or you and then tragedy strikes, and your photos are damaged, or the lost, or even taken from you. That you have this very impermanent art form that now is forever, right? That is incredible. The other side of it I think it's much smaller, but there is this aspect is where I'm talking about how like they had the Miami style.
Yeah.
I wonder if, and you can't just ask me, but I wonder if it has hurt the regional, the flavors, because everybody can be like, well, this is what I like. So there's a kid growing up in New Zealand who, likes the work of somebody in New York, and everybody can kind of pick and choose people from around the world, while it's not like, well, if you go to Philadelphia, you're going to find this kind of work. If you go to LA, you're going to find this kind of, where now I wonder if that's kind of been, muddied a little bit. And now it's just like everybody's kind of starting to get, you see people from around the world that have very similar styles to each other, and you're like, oh, well, okay, I've seen this in, Europe, or I've seen this here. Right. So I do wonder about that, but on the whole, it's just, I think it's been a big positive for it. Yeah.
Can you somehow walk us through the process when you say you started quite often with photography, and then you're moving into a wall? You really use a lot of how would I say, references in your work, as some older stuff, maybe some Roman stuff, some Greek stuff, some.
Yeah. Well, so there was a time I was working as a librarian.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've always been into research and information, and just like, yeah. So going back into those catalogs of these photos, like we were talking about, Library of Congress and that kind of thing, what I was looking for first was a striking image, and then something that, if I had a space in mind, then of course something that worked with the space. With the old sculptures, the classical sculptures, there's a few different reasons for that. One is kind of like the interplay of like the permanent and the impermanent, right?
Yes.
You have these marble sculptures that have been around for thousands of years, that they feel like, they're made of rock, right? They're made of the earth. They feel like they've always been there. There always will be there. And then you are juxtaposing that with spray paint, which is something that, like I said, would be gone in an instant, right? And is not meant, it's very ethereal and is not meant to last. And so that was fascinating. And me having that classically trained background, having degrees in art history and the BFA and everything else, then it's also a bit of my background, right? Of course, my family going far enough back to Italy and that sort of thing. But then, like, as far as aesthetics, it's going back to what I was saying about those color, the gradients and the fades and things like that, and the smoothness, the lack of the texture of the marble is something I always was drawn to as well.
Yeah.
You just have like the pure color, the pure fades and shading and everything. I don't know if that answers it right.
No, totally.
Right.
Oh, there's no right or wrong. There's absolutely no right or wrong. So when you actually paint a wall, when you're on your mural, you try to immerse yourself and forget what's going on around, or you can easily be distracted by the people, especially when you paint in Wynwood.
No.
There's always people asking you or stopping by, friends, or just like people who are taking photos.
Yeah.
Are you trying to
No,
shine away from it, or you?
I am focused in. I am focused. I'm focused in.
Yes.
The funny thing is, I have an issue not being cold to people who are around. So I will, like, you know, people are coming up to me, and this is, you know, again, hey, 2005 Wynwood, right?
Yeah.
You know, and all that. Like I was there. You feel like you're a Disney cast member. You know, people are just like, oh, yeah, whatever. I've had people, you know, tug on my shorts while I'm on a ladder and ask me like, how'd you get this wall and stuff like that. And you're just like, oh,
Yeah,
get away.
okay.
So that sort of thing has kind of like hardened me a little bit, and now I have to get out of that and try to be a little bit more pleasant and more affable and everything. But it's funny because PK has the opposite. She has a tendency where she wants to answer everyone and she wants to be nice, but then she can't, because then she gets no work done, you know?
True.
I had, and this is a kind of embarrassing story. But yeah, this is back 2007 or 8 or so. I was doing a mural in Wynwood, and somebody in a white Mercedes stops me. You know, I'm on the sidewalk, I'm doing this wall, and this couple stops. They say, oh, you know, this is great, we love your work, you know, and I was on a ladder, and it was, I believe it was summertime, it was hot, and I, you know, didn't have any patience. And they said, what's your name? And I said, Claudio. I didn't even say my last name. I didn't say CPWON or anything like that. And you're like, oh, you know, your work's great. You know, and then you said, I'm Tony Goldman. And I was like, all right, that's nice, you know.
Oh.
And then they leave. and so I tell the client, the owner, what happened. He's like, you idiot, do you know who that is? I was like, no, I had no clue. So,
no idea.
Yeah. So that was one of those things, like, I should probably be nicer to people, you know? Yeah, right. So
all right.
yeah.
Well, so see, as a result,
you never know, right? Yeah, you know, you get 100 people asking annoying questions, and you get one person who, yeah, right.
Oh, okay, right. So, are you actually? Well, I don't know. Are you actually lucky in your work right now? You're feeling like you're a happy place. You've been doing something.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm not going to complain. No, it is, it's constant anxiety.
Oh,
but I think that's it, right? I mean, because you can't,
it's being
you can't relax. You can't relax, right? It's what I don't want to do is I don't want to fall into like where you complain when there's no work and you complain when you have too much work, you know. So right now I have work, and it's good, and a lot of it is stuff that the clients are not asking for me to, like, well, I see that you paint, you know, portraits and you do this stuff. Can you do, you know, landscapes? Can you do abstract work? You know, it's not that kind of stuff.
Not.
So they're hiring me for
who you are.
Right.
For who you.
So I'm not. Yeah. So I can't.
Something. Yes.
Yeah, I can't complain about that, and I think that I'm going in the right direction with it. So
good. So, which do you value more in your work, beauty or meaning?
I think the quick answer is beauty. So I'll stick with that. It's changing a little bit now. It has over the years, but I started off wanting to paint strictly for myself. And it's strange when you're painting something so public and you're only trying to just make something that's better than the last painting. You know, you're just trying to improve, and almost, when you're talking about focusing, you're almost like in a vacuum, right?
Yeah.
You just everybody else doesn't matter. And you think, well, is this the boldest, the strongest, the most beautiful piece that I could do? Am I getting better technically, but also, you know, have I figured it out, you know? And now I over the years, I see that there is that impact that's more than just like, oh, that's a pretty, you know, thing, because there's a lot of people out there who do, you know, pretty work, but then you pass by and you're like, all right. So you want people to stop and say, well, what's going on here? You know, you want them to say, well, that's beautiful, but that's also, there's something, there's an idea here, there's a meaning here that I haven't really figured out, or I want to find out, you know. Yeah.
All right. So, is there any murals that you wish you could go back and paint over entirely?
Yes,
Something that
sure.
yes.
Absolutely. I don't want to exaggerate. So, I would say that close to half of the murals that I do, I don't end up really being happy with. Sometimes it's just a matter of time, you know,
Yeah,
or
well, of
you're,
course.
especially if
The
you're in another
elements and
place.
everything.
Yeah, you're in
Yes.
another place. It's very rare that I will look at a photo of something that I've done and say, this is great, and I could not have done better. So yeah, now go over completely.
Maybe not, but partial.
Yeah, well, you know what's funny? There is one that I am trying to go over completely right now. So, it's also like very old. I did something close to Sweat Records. I did these shutters, and then there's a Metro PCS store there, and I did. It's a very interesting space because it's in a corner, and it's 3 shutters.
Yeah, you have those three,
and it's awful. I did it in Fat Cap, like I feel like it was 20 years ago, and
still there.
yeah, it's still there, which is great, you know. But I almost feel like somebody should just, you know, get rid of it. But I'm looking at talking to the owners and doing something completely different there. So yeah, but that's just like, well, it's not necessarily like I just did something and I'm like, oh no, that's bad, I need to do it again. That's just something like I've gotten much better, you know.
You get much better,
right? Yeah,
and the location is great because I remember seeing this while I drove by a few times. I mean,
a car ran into the middle of it, you know, which was like the nose of the piece. So there's nothing in the middle.
No, there's nothing in the middle.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
No, you get the eyes on both sides.
Yeah, I know.
3 layers.
I'll redo it eventually.
Just like you had those 3 eyes at the Gab.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. This was a good.
I know that was
15 years ago.
Yeah, 2014, I think. Yeah. And across from Wynwood Walls. I know.
Oh my gosh, that was something. That was something. Who do you think in the Miami art scene is maybe underrated right now? Is there anybody that's really that you would say that sticks out and just?
Yeah. Well, I was just talking to Chink the other day, Chink Fadu.
Yes.
It's funny because he's young enough that he'll say, you know, it's like, well, I don't think I'm very good, you know. I won't say the words that he used, but you know, he says, I look at your work and you know, other people's work, and I said, well, they were great, and you know, and then I think I am not that good, but no, he has a style that, like, when we're talking about that, you know, having like a style that is developed in an area, he's just kind of he's got his own thing, and I love it. I'm a fan of his, and I think he's only going to get better. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, so we get one name.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen or even noticed in someone's work something that you say, wow, this is so great. I wish I had thought about doing this before. Maybe a technique or maybe something, a spray can, you know, a move.
Yeah.
Things say, wow, that would work so well with what I do. I wish I had done it too.
Yeah, let me think about that, because I feel like at this point I've seen it all, you know. There's so few people who have something that's completely different, right? You know, you can talk about El Mac, right?
Yeah.
You know, his stuff is like, okay, well, that's obvious. Or Os Jameos, or you know, the Brazilians. Listen, I don't want to get this wrong. I don't know if it was the Brazilians or the Europeans, but the people, when they started to take all the pressure out of the cans, put them in ice water and that stuff, and then have those like kind of like staggered lines, as the, you know, the spitting, and that's all that. Brazilian. Those are very right, exactly. Those are interesting. Those are techniques. I don't think that they work for what I would do. So it's very rare, and I know that there's special caps and all of that as well, that you could get more precise and smaller lines and things of that nature. I don't think as far as like aesthetics or technique, there's anything that I've seen that has blown me away. It's stuff, honestly, it'd be stuff that's like boring, getting your work graded up and things like that. It's that kind of stuff.
Spitting art for you?
No, I don't think so. No. Yeah. And maybe, you know, and maybe I'm getting it all wrong. Maybe the smooth and the great. maybe the smoothness and the gradients would be nice with something that's like a little bit more funky and all that.
Yeah.
Maybe it would work. I don't know. Yeah.
Have you ever done any collaboration with people?
Yeah.
You mentioned
Yeah. Well, you know what's
someone
funny?
close to
I
you.
would say, and it's funny because I was saying it and I was thinking about it a few years ago. If you were looking at my work, I had I was using I hate if I'm getting a little too technical. I was using a different tip. I was getting harder edges. It was great for transitions and for the fades, but I was getting these hard edges. I am really starting to get away from the hard edges. I'm getting a little fuzzier and fuzzier and soft focus. Nothing like BK, because she's her own,
My God.
but she's obviously had an influence on me in that respect. And I can see, like, when you look at her works in person, they are fantastic.
Oh.
But they also, when you photograph them, they're meant to be photographed. I think you can absolutely appreciate them in person, and when you see them, sometimes you're like, is this painted? Is this printed? Is it, But they have that depth of field that looks like a photograph, and I don't want to get to that soft of a focus, I don't think, but I definitely see the middle ground. And while I used to struggle to get this hard, smooth edges and everything, let's say like a bubble gum, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the fades that he gets that are these silky fades with the hard edges. Now, if it's got fuzz, I don't mind. I like it,
Okay.
So that's definitely one thing. Yeah.
What's one dream project you haven't done yet and still want to tackle?
It's not just one. I don't.
Not just one.
No, I don't.
So you got a
think.
bucket list.
I don't. Yeah, of course. And I still have like I feel like it's the going to places, and I want to be able to paint in all the, I haven't painted in South America, which is crazy.
Okay.
I haven't painted in Chile. I haven't painted in Brazil or any of that. Those farther south I've gone is Mexico. But yeah, I want to do more work in Europe. I would love to work in Italy and in Germany.
Italy, I was, yes.
In the Netherlands.
Such a huge influence, yes.
Yeah, of course.
You are very, very appreciated over there.
Yeah, and I want to go back to, I did a little bit in Japan, but I want to go back and do something more substantial there. But there's, for all the work that I've done, there's places like I've never really painted any. I painted one home in LA. I've never done anything in the exterior there. So like there's a lot that's still, left to be done.
All right. So, well, we covered quite a lot. So let's finish that interview with 5 rapid fire questions.
Okay.
All right. Can we do that? Favorite wall you ever painted?
Probably going with Sweat, just because of the longevity.
Yeah. All right. Graffiti tag name you would use if you had to a fresh start today?
Oh man, I've thought of 100 of them, so I don't know. I don't know.
One name.
No, I don't know. No, I have to pass. I don't know. If I can think of it, I will. I know, because the fact that I have always used my initials has been it's terrible because I was given that from my friends when I was young, and then it just became a thing where like I started to get some notoriety, in the graffiti world. So I was like, well, now I can't change it, which I absolutely could have, and I probably,
All right.
Yeah.
A spray pen color you would take on a deserted island?
Bali green.
Okay, all right. Most Miami thing you've ever painted?
Oh, good one. I painted at Scope one year, the exterior of the tent. There was so Scope was in Midtown,
yes,
right? And it was facing 36th Street, and there was a fence. And so there was a fence, and then there was a few feet, and then there was this wall that was like a makeshift plywood that, went, I don't know, 25, 30 feet across. And so I had this interesting dilemma of this isn't fast anymore, I'm sorry, of what to do with it. But for the people who were walking, and they could look over the fence that was about this big. I wanted something for them specifically, and then something for the people who were driving. So essentially, I did like a kind of a welcome to Miami in traditional sense, with where the top half of it was very beautiful with the sunset colors and the pinks and everything and the soft, and then there was a horizon line there cut off where everything below was dead, and there was this muck water and things floating and all that. So there was like the tube, but it was like if you could walk closer, if you get in closer, you could see what was underneath, literally, So for the people who were walking and look over the fence, you would see a completely different piece. And so I think that was the most Miami thing.
That was the most Miami thing.
Yeah.
So one word people should feel when they see your work.
I'm going, see, these are not fast questions. You have to think about them. No, birthday is a fast question. One word, I would say smooth.
Smooth? All right.
Yeah.
So let's get back to that graffiti, a name that you would get.
Okay, you know what's really funny is I won't answer that question, but I will in a way. So my middle name is Antonio. So literally it's Cap. And I wanted to write Cap when I was a kid, because I thought, well, that's cool. My initials, and it's a cap, like a fat cap, whatever. I would do that. But then, they're like, you idiot, there was already, legend Cap, from New York, and you can't write Cap. So I was like, that really,
13.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, no, couldn't do that one.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, so there you have it. Okay, Claudio Picasso, thank you so much. So from graffiti kid to one of the most Miami respected muralists is proof that grit, discipline, and a whole lot of spray paint can turn passion into legacy. Thank you so much for sharing those few minutes with us for that podcast. I think this was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Thanks for having me.
Claudio, thank you so much again. All right. And we hope to see you soon. Well, people will see your work at least in Miami. Actually, how many cities have you painted here in the U.S.?
Oh my gosh.
You travel quite a lot.
Yeah. So New York is definitely the second most. I've done about 20 walls or something like that in New York. A couple spots in Texas, Massachusetts, those would be the next two.
Yeah.
And then and then outside of Miami, Tampa, Lakeland, Fort Lauderdale, and around the Keys and all that. And then in other countries,
all right.
some
Great. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for this podcast. I mean, this is a great story, and you're definitely part of the Miami. You've been writing your own narrative for quite some times now. So thank you so much again. All right.
Thank you.
Guys, we'll see you in a couple of weeks with another guest. Stay tuned in the meantime. And if you like the podcast, please follow us, subscribe. This is the best way you can support that beautiful art community we have. It's not just about me. It's about them. Those guys have been doing so much work for so long. So liking the podcast and subscribing is one way to support them. Thank you so much again. And have a great day. Thank you.